I would describe the first 24 years of my first marriage as almost perfect. Yes, I know, almost every man who has been deceived thinks so and believes that he was the perfect husband. I thought so too. I was blind and unaware of my shortcomings. The end began last summer a year ago. My wife began to distance herself from me. Our conversations became shorter. She became irritated when I flirted with her and responded coldly when I spanked her buttocks when we were alone in the house. There is much less intimacy. After all, we spent the last few months of our marriage just coexisting. My name is Mark. During all this time, I was 50 years old. My wife, Lisa, too. I am an attorney. I used to be a trial lawyer, but recently switched to estate planning. Lisa is a primary school teacher. We're both in pretty good shape. This is the story of the end of my first marriage and the beginning of my second. We met and fell in love in college. We got married while I was in law school, and she took it upon herself to support me through my studies. For almost our entire marriage, our love never faded, until this fateful year. At the end of this summer, our youngest daughter, Linda, left for State University. Our son, Larry, was already in college, so Linda's departure left us empty nesters. Lisa became depressed because the children grew up and left home. She was a great mother. She put almost all her energy into raising her children. But when the children left home, she had nowhere to direct this energy. She walked around the house gloomy, and her reaction to any of my proposals was only a reason for quarrels. I tried to channel her energy into activities together, but she showed no interest. Only returning to work after the summer holidays improved her mood. But this did not improve our relationship. By December, our relationship had dropped to almost zero, and all my attempts to change something only irritated her. For her, it was all my fault. She was telling me about a new teacher who moved into the classroom next to hers. Lisa perked up when she talked about her new colleague. By December, he was the only topic of our rare conversations. Any topic I proposed was met by Lisa with only boring answers. Jeremy was such a smart and funny guy. Eventually, the talking almost stopped. All we could do was watch TV together in silence. In December, there were dramatic changes. She started coming home later, an hour or more later. Instead of grading papers and preparing for lessons at school after classes ended, she now did it in the evening in her office instead of watching TV with me. We were rarely in the same room together. She even ate in the office. She watched TV there when she finished her schoolwork. It felt like I was living with a ghost. Christmas break with the kids home from college made Lisa happy and social with them, but she still ignored me. Even an expensive gift in the form of jewelry did not evoke a positive reaction from her. The children noticed this and asked me about it. I told them I was worried but couldn't figure it out. Lisa told them that it was okay that older couples behaved this way. A week later, after the kids had returned to college, I tried to talk to Lisa. I entered the office and said that we needed to talk. She just sighed and answered sharply, "What now?" "Do you still love me?" I asked. "You're so damn needy. What the hell are you thinking?" I was stunned. She had never used obscene language before. Then she turned away and continued checking the work. I stood and looked at her for a full minute. Then, with a sigh, I said, "I don't think you're in love. You're not a wife anymore. You're not even a very good roommate. I still love you, but if things don't change, it won't be enough." She continued to check the work as if I was not there. I left the room, knowing that I had my answer. Then one evening, a few weeks later, Lisa came home much later than she had ever done before. It was already after 10. She had never stayed at work for so long before. I was genuinely worried, but when I called her cell phone, it went to voicemail. When I finally heard her car pull into the driveway, I went to the door to meet her, but she quickly walked past me saying, "I need to go to the bathroom." Her hair was disheveled, her clothes were wrinkled and worn carelessly. Her lipstick, makeup, and mascara were smeared. "Are you okay?" I called after her. "Yes, everything is fine," she shouted, without stopping or looking at me. I followed her upstairs, but she hurried into our bathroom and locked the door behind her. I couldn't pretend anymore that she wasn't having an affair. I went out and sat on our porch, looking into the darkness and wondering what to do. Is there anything in this marriage that I would like to save? Even if she crawled to me on her knees, could I stay with this woman who so callously threw away our life together and caused me so much pain? Half an hour later, I got up and went upstairs to our bedroom. She was already in her old nightgown and tapping on the phone. She didn't even look at me. I went to the bathroom and took a shower. When I returned to the bedroom, I found her pretending to be asleep. Her still-burning phone proved that she had just put it down. I pushed her and said in a stern tone, "Get up, it's time to talk." She turned and looked at me. "It's all over between us. Today you showed that you have absolutely no respect for me and our 25 years of marriage. Today you have gone much further than the daily humiliation that I have endured in recent months. Today you came here as if you had good sex, a cheap, easy-to-get girl who was taken advantage of and thrown away. You didn't even try to hide it. All this time I hoped that the woman I loved for 25 years, the woman who raised my 2 children with such tenderness, would return. Obviously, this woman is dead. Murdered, I suspect, but whoever you were." I saw the growing horror in her eyes at this completely unfamiliar tone that I used. "Don't worry, honey, I'll be gone soon. I just want you to know that it will probably only take a couple of weeks to get my things and leave. I've had enough. You will get half of everything, and you and your lover can live happily ever after. Just keep him away from this house until I leave." I left the room and moved into our guest room. The next morning, I got up early and waited for her. When she finally stood up, she came downstairs, glanced at me sitting at the kitchen table, then quickly disappeared into the office. I pulled my laptop out onto the kitchen table and began to rebuild my life. Lisa's diary, March 12th. Jeremy had been promising me all week that we would take our sexual experience to the next level on Friday, but I had no idea what he meant. My anticipation was sky high. When we finally got to the motel, I could barely stand it. In the room, we both undressed as soon as the door slammed shut. Jeremy had his special bag with him, so I had a good idea of what was coming. But first, we had sex. It was quick and furious sex. Jeremy was just as excited as I was. Afterwards, lying in each other's arms, Jeremy told me that before starting the next stage, he whispered to me, "Do you trust me?" which was code for our Master Bad Girl game. Yes, sir. The rules of the game were to never break character unless absolutely necessary, and I had never broken character before. Jeremy stood up and walked over to his bag. He then tied me to the bed with my arms and legs spread out, adding a blindfold and gag. I was a little surprised by the gag. It wasn't part of the normal game. Then I heard Jeremy get up next to me, remove the gag and whisper in my ear, "Are you ready for the big surprise, bad girl?" "Yes, sir," I said. "Do you trust me?" he repeated. "Yes, sir. I'll be back soon." He got up and left. Then I heard the door open and close. 3 minutes later, I heard the door opening and closing again. It took a second or two to realize that there was someone else on the bed. After several minutes of this wild and forbidden sex, both men stopped. I was so excited that I didn't notice the stranger leaving. When Jeremy was finished, he removed my bandage, and we both lay down on the bed to rest. A few minutes later, when we had both caught our breath, I told him how happy I was that he was able to rid me of my sexual complexes. I told him how much I loved these adventures and how much I loved him for taking me on them. He said he was glad that I finally saw how a real man does it. I told him that Mark had suggested some of these things, but when I said no, he didn't push any further. Jeremy said that's why Mark is this spineless little man, that a real man takes what he wants. Jeremy then stood up, grabbed his phone from the stand in the corner of the room, and showed me the video he took of our show. What I saw was wild. Watching this made me horny again. I just needed to have sex again, so I climbed on top of him, and we did it again. I saw who the mysterious man was. He was old, fat, and bald. Strangely, the fact that he was ugly made it even more vicious. I was truly approachable. We lost track of time, and it was already late at night. We both knew that by staying out so late, we would be faced with questions at home. I didn't really care, but I really didn't want to draw any more suspicion to myself since we had a big weekend coming up. But Jeremy was worried. He was in a hurry to leave, and we skipped our usual shower routine to wash away all traces of sex. When I came home, Mark was standing at the door. He may be boring, but he's not an idiot. He realized that something was wrong. I was a mess and quickly brushed past him upstairs to the bathroom. I heard him follow me upstairs, so I quickly went into the bathroom and locked the door. Mark simply turned and went downstairs. I showered and climbed into bed, sending a text message to Jeremy. He told me that his wife was furious that he was late. He really needed to tell her and get this over with. Mark came in later while I was still texting Jeremy. I ignored him, continuing to focus on the phone. He went to the bathroom and took a shower without saying a word. When he left, I turned on my side, pretending to be asleep. He then pushed me hard and told me to sit down. He was angrier than I had ever seen him, angrier than I could have ever imagined. It was a strange anger. He did not shout, his face did not turn red, he spoke slowly and deliberately, but his words and tone warned that he was not to be trifled with. His anger was measured, and his words were carefully chosen. He called me an easily accessible woman. He said that the woman he was married to and who raised his children died. He then said it would take him a couple of weeks to pack his things and leave. After that, he went to the guest room. Well, it was finally done. Jeremy insisted that we not end the relationship earlier, but Mark had other plans. The fact that it finally happened wasn't such a bad thing. I thought there would be more tears and complaints, but there were no tears or complaints. When the kids find out, they'll love Jeremy. They will want me to be happy and Jeremy will be a good father to them. I'll have to figure out how to tell them about this. There's no rush, and I really don't have to worry about Mark. He doesn't know how to talk to kids. Next weekend is already planned. Jeremy and I will spend it at the old mountain getaway cottage that I've been to so many times. The thought of finally waking up next to my loved one excites me greatly. And now that everything is open, everything will be much easier. That Saturday morning, I got busy transferring money so she wouldn't be the first to do it. She'll get half, but I won't let her get into our accounts until we settle the matter. I left enough money in our checking account that she could continue living without noticing a difference for the next week. She never checked our finances anyway. I applied for 2 new credit cards and prepared to cancel the co-branded cards. We didn't talk all weekend. She hid in the office while I finished my little project and went shopping. The following Monday, after she left for work, I called the office and said I would not be coming. Then I went into the office. Lisa kept a diary on her desktop computer. She was a creature of habit, preferring her desktop computer to laptops or tablets. I never saw her diary, but I knew it was there. It was password protected, but she had all the passwords written down on a piece of paper in her desk. Every Sunday evening for most of our marriage, she would go into her office and write a page or two. What I read in her diary was shocking. She wrote about her infidelities in disturbing detail. She was into things that I never thought she would love, and also prohibited substances. There were few references to me, but when they appeared, they were offensive. I printed copies and emailed the entire diary to myself. Then I checked her email. Most of the letters were from the main suspect, Jeremy Sims. The last dozen emails had attachments. Jeremy sent video clips of their sexual adventures. How romantic. Later that day, after the students had left, I called Betty, Lisa's best friend at work. I asked her to meet me. She hesitated and then said cautiously, "Hi, Mark, how are you? What happened?" "Betty, I need your help," I pleaded. "Can you spare half an hour so we can meet? It's about Lisa." There was a very long break. "Yes, of course, Mark. Let's meet. We have a lot to discuss. I can be at the Starbucks next to school at 4 o'clock. Can you drive there? I'm already leaving." I arrived at Starbucks 10 minutes early. Betty also came early. When I approached Betty, she hugged me and said, "I'm so sorry, Mark. I should have called you earlier. I just couldn't find the courage." I bought us both coffee. We sat down, and she explained that almost from the start of the school year, the new teacher, Jeremy Sims, had completely monopolized all of Lisa's free time. Then everything changed at the teacher's Christmas party in early December. The staff room was decorated for Christmas, and Sims hung a sprig of mistletoe above the door. When Lisa entered, he pointed to the mistletoe and demanded a kiss. Lisa hugged him, and they kissed passionately. Several other teachers, and I saw this. We were all shocked. Lisa and Sims left school together. They left in different cars, but in the same direction. I thought so. One day I left early. There is a motel at the end of the road near the school. I drove past and saw their cars there. Other teachers also told me that they saw the same thing. Betty continued, "She doesn't have any friends anymore. Everyone avoids her. And she's avoiding me, probably because my opinion means something to her, and she clearly doesn't want to hear it." "Does everyone know about this? Is the school director aware?" I asked. "Everyone knows. Principal Connor knows too. In fact, Connor and I talked about it in detail." Crap. That was the only answer I could utter. Mark, Sims is a real snake. He continues to flirt with other teachers, mostly married ones. They all came up to me and asked me to warn Lisa. I tried, but she called us liars and said I was just jealous. The director knows too, but no one wants to bring charges of sexual harassment against him. The principal told me in strict confidence that Sims was transferred here because of 2 substantiated complaints of sexual harassment at his previous school. Thank you, Betty. I'm sorry I got you into all this. Then I drove past the motel Betty told me about, and Lisa's car was there. Although I already knew that it was all over, seeing it in reality was painful. Lisa returned home much later than the last time. It was already well after 10 o'clock when she arrived. We didn't talk. I went to bed while she warmed up the dinner I had prepared for her. For the next couple of days, I worked in my office in the mornings and returned home to continue working on my journal. By Thursday, I had almost everything ready and printed out several copies of her diary just in case. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I went to Lisa's school. I arrived a few minutes after my unfaithful wife left with her lover and went to talk to the director. "Connor, you need to get rid of this predator and keep him away from the kids while he tries to sleep with every woman in this school. You're just lucky that the only woman stupid enough to contact him was my idiot wife." "Yes, Mr. Murphy, I probably expected this. The problem is that I don't have the evidence to make anything official." "Well, now you have more than enough. Here is your proof." I gave him copies of the diary. It's from her computer. "I now expect you to fire Jeremy Sims. Tell the district superintendent, and if he doesn't get fired, the media will find out that you are covering for this sexual predator. My wife is to be placed on probation, and I want her to stay here at school as a condition of her probation. But please wait until Monday. I need the day off to get my things out of the house without drama." She and Sims went on a secret weekend date. "I can do this. It will be difficult even though his wife is pregnant," Connor said. Then I went home. As I pulled into the driveway, I was surprised to see Lisa and the jerk's cars were parked in my driveway. I blocked his car and entered the house. They were upstairs in the master bedroom, and the sounds of passionate sex filled the house. I quietly walked upstairs, grabbed the baseball bat from my son's room, turned on the camera on my smartphone, placed it in my shirt's breast pocket with the lens sticking out, and quietly pushed open the door to our bedroom. They were so absorbed in each other that they didn't notice me standing in the doorway. I froze for a few seconds, feeling my heart break. I then put on a mask of cool indifference and tapped the bat 3 times on the open door frame to get their attention. Lisa raised her head and screamed, "You son of a bitch, get out of here, pervert." "Oh, darling, I think I have a little more right to be in this bedroom than your lover. You are my wife," I answered calmly and decisively. As the 2 naked bodies began to make out with each other, I added with a hint of sadness, "Only one lover today? Has something slowed down, Lisa?" Jeremy just stared at the bat. Then I continued with a sad note, Why our marital bed in our family home? Couldn't you wait at least a week to let me have some dignity while I'm gone? Is your heart really that cold? Lisa didn't even look at me while she was getting dressed. Anyway, we need to talk about finances, I continued. I was going to wait until the evening when you were going to tell me about your plans for the weekend in the mountains, but now will do. They both looked at me in bewilderment, wondering how I knew everything. I canceled all your credit cards since they were joint with me. I withdrew all the money from our savings accounts and certificates, and I stopped depositing my paycheck into our joint checking account. Now only your salary will go there. This is temporary. You'll get half of everything in the divorce plus alimony, but until you have a lawyer, I need to make sure this scoundrel doesn't run off with more than your ass. I then took out her new card and placed it on her dresser. Here's your new credit card. It has a $2,000 credit limit, but if you need to top it up, just call me. That's easily enough to rent a cottage with enough left over for a couple of trips to McDonald's. I wish you would choose a different cottage than the one where we spent so many wonderful weekends. This place was special to me. Now this will be my personal monument to your betrayal. Anyway, when you guys get back on Sunday, I'll have already picked up my things. I will be here with a written proposal for the division of our assets and a proposal that you can give to your lawyer. You choose your lawyer, I will pay his fee. After I explain my proposal, I will leave this house forever. To this, Jeremy, finally dressed, said in as manly a tone as possible, "You know, you wouldn't be so cocky if you didn't have that baseball bat." I quickly responded with a rage in my voice that Lisa didn't suspect. "You, little bastard, think you deserve a fair fight. You're just a cockroach and a thief who hides when the lights are turned on. You are a lowlife who turned a decent woman into your personal bitch while your wife was 5 months pregnant. If you give me even the slightest reason to defend myself, I will hurt you. So just let me know when you want to dance, puppy." Lisa then turned to Jeremy and asked, "Is she pregnant? You said she hasn't touched you in a year. What the hell is going on? Now I'll go. The nightclub's happy hour is starting soon, so I have to go. Have fun, kids." As I was about to leave, I noticed an open drawer on her dresser containing my latest Christmas gift, an expensive necklace. I grabbed it and said to Lisa, "I'm sure I'll find a dancer who will really appreciate this." I got into the car and drove to a nice hotel near work. I ate, went up to my room, and immediately fell asleep. I was surprised how tired I was. March 16th. Well, he caught us in the middle of it. Jeremy thought it would be great to have sex with me in our marital bed, while Mark was at work one last time, as that was the only thing he asked me not to do. We have already done this several times. That was another way Jeremy asserted his authority over me. I really liked the idea of crossing Mark and our unhappy marriage out of my life. But just as things started to get intense, Mark sneaked up to the bedroom and banged on the door with a bat. At first, he seemed calm. He knew about our plans for the weekend. He then said that he had taken almost all the money from the bank and canceled my credit cards. He gave me a new card with a small credit limit and said that we would have to eat at McDonald's. Jeremy called it a last-ditch attempt at control. Mark then attacked Jeremy furiously. I've never seen him so angry. I'm sure if Jeremy tried to do anything, Mark would have killed him. He also said that Jeremy's wife was pregnant, which Jeremy never told me. Jeremy later admitted it, but said it didn't matter to us, that the pregnancy was a mistake and his crazy wife refused to terminate it. The main thing about this incident is that now I don't have to worry about whiny, pathetic Mark anymore. He announced that he was leaving. It's been a crazy week. Jeremy arranged for us to have another threesome earlier in the week. This time I wasn't blindfolded and I was ready. Very hot. The next day I left the office early. At 4:30, after watching my wife and her lover drive away in her car from afar, I walked into Betty's classroom. "Hi, Betty. Did you hear anything?" "No, but something is clearly going on. There have been a lot of whispers today," she said. "I think so. I accidentally found them in my bed yesterday in my house." I told Betty about their weekend in the mountains and about the diary. Now I need to call Sim's wife and ask her to meet me today. Can I call from here? I'd like you to be here for support if possible. I dated Laura Sims. She's a nice woman. We got along well. Let me call her for you. Of course, but this news must be communicated personally. Ask if she can meet me. Betty arranged the meeting and insisted on being there with me. Our meeting with Laura brought new details about the scoundrel. This was the second time Jeremy was caught cheating. Last time she forgave him only because of his solemn promise to never cheat again. Laura was going to kick him out of the house. All that was left to do was wait. It dawned on me that these were the last days I would spend in this house. Then I couldn't stand it. I tried so hard and hard to keep everything to myself. I needed to talk to someone. But the person I usually talked to when I needed to share was Lisa. Then the phone rang. It was my daughter, Linda. It was a normal call. Something happened, and she wanted to get an advance on her pocket money to go with friends. But she quickly noticed from my voice that something was wrong with me and asked. I didn't say anything, but she insisted. My voice wavered as I tried to reassure her that everything was fine, and then she demanded an honest answer. I told her that I found my mother and her lover in our bed, and that she was leaving me for him. After that, I cried and told Linda that I had to go. 2 hours later, Linda and Larry were already home. I told them everything. I shouldn't tell the kids this, but once I started, I couldn't stop. I cried all weekend, talking about my ruined life, while my children tried to console me. The children helped me move some of my things to my brother's house. We took the bed and mattress from the master bedroom to the dump. That was the last time they had sex on my bed. When Sunday morning finally arrived and the kids were getting ready to leave for school, I asked them not to contact their mother until I could talk to her. They agreed. That afternoon, around 1 p.m., I was sitting on the porch, finishing a draft proposal for the division of our property, when Lisa drove up after her weekend. She arrived much earlier than I expected. I pulled myself together and outwardly remained calm. She walked up onto the porch, and I smiled at her from my chair and asked, "Did you guys have a good time?" My voice was as pleasant as I could make it. She replied with a tight smile and sarcasm in her voice, "We had a great time, thanks for asking." I'm almost finished writing a proposal on how we can divide the property. Why don't you come inside and rest for a while I finish, and then we can talk things over and I'll leave. It won't take long. She nodded and went inside. As soon as I finished and pressed the seal, she came out and screamed, "Where is my damn bed?" "She's in the dump," I said matter-of-factly. Stunned, she looked at me, waiting for an explanation. It was the bed I shared with my wife. This was the place where I made love to the woman I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. She is not meant for a corrupt bitch and her pimp. "What should I sleep on now?" Lisa demanded, ignoring the insult. "I don't think you noticed. The children took their things. You have a choice between the guest room and the children's rooms." "What?" She looked surprised. "Yes, they were here this weekend. We moved their things to the warehouse. I'm looking for a 3-room apartment, and they'll move in with me when they're in town." "What? You can't take my children away from me." "They are no longer your children. Honey, when I read in your diary that you were going to make Jeremy their new father, I had no choice but to fight for them. It was not difficult. As soon as I told them what you were doing and how you planned to replace me with your lover, they were as disgustingly amazed as I was." Lisa took out her phone and muttered that she needed to call Linda, but I interrupted her, telling her that she could call the kids later, but right now we needed to discuss finances so I could leave. She nervously put down the phone. "You're a pathetic little drama king, aren't you? The children will not leave me." "I would call it more poetry than drama, but that doesn't matter," I replied, smiling. "Sit down and look at this. This is a list of our assets. We need to try to split them in half. Now I'll go and pick up the sentence from the printer. I'll be back in a minute." I came back with an offer. Lisa sat with a barely noticeable smile on her face, looking through the list of our assets. "Are we really worth $5 million?" she asked. Well, if we were still together, yes. This will give your lawyer a little head start. There is also a trust account I set up for the children that is not included in the total. I ask you not to touch him, no matter how much that asshole complains about it. I will pay your attorney's fees and seek compensation in the final settlement. Hire a local lawyer or choose a lawyer from another city if you don't trust local ones. I don't trust your lover. When he finds out what amounts are involved, he will want to take everything and disappear. We can sort this out quickly, but it will take a little time for you to understand what's what. If you need more pocket money before we reach a final settlement, just say so. I will pay you alimony. I have outlined the proposal for the amount here. Then I added, you can stay in the house. I will pay the mortgage and utilities until we agree on child support. She looked at the papers I gave her and saw the totals. She smiled. She then asked, have you moved in yet? Yes. I'll leave as soon as we're done here. I wouldn't want you to put up with this pathetic, whiny, worthless husband any longer than absolutely necessary, I replied evenly. She recognized the expression Jeremy and she used when talking about me and quickly realized that I had been reading her diary. Then I put the flash drive on the table. This is the video where I caught you in bed with that bastard. I wrote it down in case he tries something stupid. Since he was only hiding behind your back, I won't use him. It shows a few seconds of you having sex, so enjoy it. After a pause, I said in a soft, more serious voice, I will try to be kind out of respect for your memory, and because you are the mother of my children. But honey, you have hurt me so much, and I feel so much anger. You were the love of my life. But I've never felt pain like this, so I ask you to at least pretend that you have some respect for me. This will make everything easier. She didn't answer. She looked at me for a few minutes, then went back to reading the financial documents I had given her. She sat there for a few minutes, reading how much she would get, and a smile began to appear on her face again. It was much more than she expected. Suddenly, we both looked up as a car drove up to our driveway at high speed, stopping suddenly at the last moment. Ah, the fun is about to begin, I said to no one in particular. Lisa was surprised to see her lover's car. I pulled out the baseball bat I had hidden behind the flower pot and stood on the top step of the porch. Damn it, I'm 50, and I'm not going to give this puny guy half my age a fair fight. I'll crush your sorry ass, you bastard. How dare you mess with me, Sims shouted. For the first time in a long time, I smiled, picked up the baseball bat from the ground, and put it on my shoulder, shouting, Come on, lover, let's play. When he saw the baseball bat again, he froze 10 feet away from me. Oh dear, you forgot to bring your bat again. You're a slow learner, I said mockingly. With anger in my voice, I added, Before I go, enter my house again, and I will break every bone in you. Will you, old man? There was contempt in his voice, but he didn't take a single step. To me, not to the house. Then he added, Well, your soulmate has me now, you brainless miracle. Lisa went downstairs and, standing next to her lover, asked him, What are you doing? Why are you here? I answered before he could. I told his wife that you and the idiot are having sex in the shack like animals. She thought he was at a staff meeting. I told her you guys had sex before Christmas and gave her a copy of the flash drive. Does she finally know? There was happiness on Lisa's face as she looked into the eyes of her lover. This is good news. Finally, we can be together. Lover's face twisted. Yes, I said, but he won't have much money after he pays child support for 3 children when the new baby is born. He will need your money. Turning to Jeremy, I added, I may be a whiny, fucking weakling, and you may have stolen my wife, but at least I carried my weight, you worthless leech. I provided for my family, which is more than can be said. If you have sex while your wife is pregnant at home and you have kids, you're just a good-for-nothing slacker. Then I said to Lisa, and you are no better, destroying 2 families with your debauchery. Then I added, and honey, that's not all. He is on probation at his previous school for sexual harassment, and I understand that there are a couple of new sexual harassment complaints brewing from teachers he harassed at your school. He will deceive. To hell with this, Jeremy shouted. My wife will not leave me. Unlike you, weakling, my wife needs me. While you were struggling to get up, I had your wife every day. Your wife obeyed my every demand. You treated her like a delicate flower. I took her as if she needed sex. Yes, I know, I said, feigning sadness but holding the bat tightly. But that's not all. You won much more. You not only outdid me sexually, but you also stole my best friend. You stole the love of my life. You destroyed my connection with my soulmate. No. Lover, you have won. All I have are memories of a once happy family that was destroyed. Now she's all yours. You don't understand, you spineless weakling, he said. I don't want her. I enjoy her because I had your bitch. I don't need her anymore. I can't believe I hung out with that fat old cow for so long. He got into the car and started the engine. Lisa ran up to his car and shouted, Jeremy, are you leaving me? Jeremy, take me with you. Jeremy, please don't leave me. The asshole reversed and backed away without looking at Lisa. Lisa watched the car drive away in disbelief and then simply sat down on the ground on the front lawn and cried. I walked up to Lisa, whispered in her ear, Not here, sweetie, and helped her get up. Neighbors were already standing in their yards and watching us. I walked Lisa into our house, hugging her tenderly and supporting her. I sat her down on the couch, asked if she wanted coffee. She shook her head and covered her face with her hands, sobbing. I whispered in her ear, Don't worry, he only wants to return to his wife because her parents are rich. But she won't bring him back. He will come back to you. After a few minutes of sitting next to her and rubbing her back, I walked out onto the porch, sat down, and called Lisa's mom. Hi, Sarah, I said, when Lisa's mom replied, I have a very big favor to ask of you. We are dealing with a very complex problem, and I desperately need your help right now. Okay, Mark, what's going on? Lisa has been having an affair for the last 4 months. I heard Sarah sigh. This weekend, everything came to a head. I told Lisa I was leaving her, and then her boyfriend broke up with her. Apparently, he plans to return to his wife. Oh my God, no, no. This can't be true. How would Lisa do this? Mark, dear, I'm so sorry. After a pause, Sarah continued, I have no words, Mark. I don't know what to say. Me too, Sarah. Lisa is crying about her boyfriend, and I'm not the one who can comfort her. Can you come and be with Lisa? I'm afraid she might hurt herself when I leave. I can stay here until you get here, but then I have to go. She doesn't need me here. Oh, Mark, I'll be there in a few minutes. As Lisa's whimpering subsided, I heard her call her cell phone number. I knew that the children would have to learn about their move. I went inside to listen. When my daughter answered, I heard her scream, You are a terrible woman. How could you do this to our father? Who the hell are you? You know that while you were having your creepy lover, Larry and I were comforting Dad. This weekend I have never seen my father cry for you before, and now you want to talk to me after destroying my family. You are a monster. I hate you. You are dead to me again. With that, she hung up. Lisa never said a word. Lisa looked at me, and the tears started again. I said simply, You told your lover that he would love my children and become their new father. Sorry, dear, but I will fight for my children. She looked at me again for a moment, surprised that I reminded her of everything she said. What will happen now? She asked through tears. Your mother will arrive soon, and then I will leave. My miserable existence here is over. This house is yours. Your lover will return. His insults towards you were just a way to hurt me. It was another way to humiliate me. But be careful with money around with him. After the divorce, hubby's bank will be closed. I went out onto the porch. A few minutes later, her mother arrived. I met her at the car. She hugged me tightly and asked if I was okay. No, she's not fine. But Lisa is in even worse shape. Sarah, Lisa needs her mother now. The children are leaving her too. Be gentle with her. Sarah walked into the house, and I got into the car and drove away. The next day, Lisa called the school and said she was sick. Jeremy came to school but was immediately escorted out and informed that he was suspended from work without pay, followed by dismissal. That day, Lisa spent time with her mother. Lisa was in bad condition, and Sarah did not leave her side. On Tuesday, Lisa went to school and found out that Jeremy had been fired and she herself had been put on probation. Betty approached her and said that she would support her during this difficult time. They finally talked for the first time in months. That afternoon, as Linda was leaving, Jeremy met her in the parking lot, but I'll let her tell the story from her journal. March 18th. What's happened? In 10 minutes, my world collapsed. Mark left. The children have moved out. A very angry Jeremy came to beat up Mark, but backed down when Mark confronted him. Then Jeremy said the worst things about me and left. I called my dear Linda, and she said I was dead to her. What have I done? March 20th. Today I went to school. Collins called me into his office and told me that I had violated the moral clause of my contract and that I would be given a written citation that would be added to my personnel file, and that I would be on probation for the rest of the school year and a contract for the next year. The year will also be subject to a probationary period. I stood in front of Collins, feeling humiliated. He also said that the superintendent wanted to fire me, but that Mark stood up for me changed the decision. When I left Collins' office, Betty came up to me and hugged me. She asked how I was holding up. She told me not to try to deal with this alone, that she would be there for me. I started crying. This year, I was so cold towards her. After the last call, Betty came to my office to talk. She said she missed me very much. She then admitted that she wanted nothing to do with me until Mark called. Mark asked her to help me. She said she's glad she did it because underneath all the grief and pain she sees the old me. When I left school, Jeremy was waiting for me in the car. He said that he had finally decided to leave his wife. He asked if the wimp had moved out, and when I said he had, he said he was going to move in with me. I was stunned because just 2 days ago he had said terrible things, and now he acted as if nothing had happened. Maybe Mark was right about him. I told him that my mother lives with me and that now is not the time. Then he suggested going to our love motel. I refused, saying that I needed time after all the crap that happened. He started to explain, but I stopped him and left. Then Saturday morning came. I was visiting my brother when there was a loud knock on the door. I was the closest, so I opened the door. It was Lisa. "You poisoned my children against me, you bastard," she screamed. "Honey, please come in," I said as softly as possible. "You turned my mom against me, you turned my friends against me, you turned the school against me. You left me with nothing," she continued to scream. "Lisa, can I say something?" I asked while she was catching her breath. "No," she screamed. "I want my children back," she continued. "I agree," I said. "Our children need you, Lisa. I know that. We need to help them get through this." "I don't need your crap. You arranged all this yourself, son." Her anger did not subside, and she still stood at the door. I heard my brother standing right behind me. "I'd like to talk about it," I said softly. To which she screamed, "Oh, fuck you." Then she turned around and left. I called Lisa's mom, told her what happened. Her mother said Lisa was excited in the morning, but when she left, no one knew where she went. "Mark, she's in a bad place right now. She needs someone to blame other than herself." Of course you're right, Sarah. This is where our conversation ended. March 26th. I can barely cope. Linda doesn't answer my calls or messages. Larry picked up the phone, but only to say that he couldn't talk right now and that I shouldn't call him again. Jeremy reappeared in the parking lot. He said that he filed for divorce and wants to move in with me. Betty already told me that it was his wife who filed for divorce. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to return him, but in the end, I said that my mother had moved in with me and I needed time. I was thinking about what Mark said about him coming back for the money in the divorce. I also thought about what Jeremy was saying about me and lying about his wife. He was a good lover and I loved him, but I'm a little smarter now. I didn't completely refuse him. The idea that we would live together was still in my head, but this idea has already lost its appeal. I only have my mom and Betty, who both think I'm an easy girl who did something unfair to innocent Mark. Yesterday, I ran into Mark. I told him what I thought of him, that little bastard. He stood and listened. He tried to speak, but I stopped him. I don't know what to do now. My classroom is my safe place. Work doesn't allow me to think about the crap that surrounds me. She had 8 weeks left with her children until the end of the school year. She managed, but only with great difficulty. Sarah and Betty literally dragged her across the finish line. Lisa saw a doctor who prescribed her antidepressants and a psychologist who counseled her 3 times a week throughout May and June. There was an improvement, but she was still depressed. A psychologist told Lisa that she became depressed when the last of her children left home, and when the first shiny thing appeared in front of her, she grabbed it in the hope that it would make her feel better. But then her advisor warned her not to blame the incident on her depression. Many people become depressed, and most of them do not grab the first person they meet, do not leave their family, and do not have sex with someone else's husband. Only she herself is responsible for how everything turned out. April 16th. This week, I completed my first week of consultations with Dr. Pat, a psychologist. She helps me talk through the pain and, hopefully, find a way out of this situation. She was kind, but that doesn't mean it was easy. Mom says Mark calls every day to check on me and gives her reports on Larry and Linda. At Mark's request, the children call their mother to talk about school. Linda told her mom she didn't want to talk about me. Larry told his mom that it was too painful for him to talk about what happened, but maybe someday he would be able to. Mark is manipulating everything, trying to make things worse for me. Of course, he promises me all kinds of benefits, but these are just words. He's trying to get me to lower my guard. By the end of April, it happened again. There's a knock on the door on a Saturday morning. Since this had already become habitual, I went to open the door. It was Lisa. She didn't scream anymore. "You win, I give up. What can I do to get the children back?" she asked. "Please come in, honey," I replied. She crossed the threshold of my brother's house very carefully, but continued to speak loudly. "It's all about the house? Do you want me to give up the house?" asked Lisa. "No, honey, not at all," I replied. "In money?" she asked. "I don't need anything from you," I replied. "Lisa, our children need you. I damaged your relationship by letting them see how you hurt me, and you damaged their relationship with you by hurting me. We both need to fix what we did, not for our sake, but for their sake." Lisa listened, and we continued our conversation. I told her what I've told my children many times. You were a great mother. You loved them both immensely, and even though you were a lousy wife, you were always a great mother. I suggested calling the children. I took my phone and made a triple call to both of them. I said that my mother was next to me and listening. I assured them that they didn't have to talk to her. They just needed to listen to me. I said that Mom and I put our differences aside to convince them that they should open their hearts to Mom. We didn't ask for forgiveness, only effort to move forward. None of us are perfect, including your mother, except for how much she loves you, I told them. Then I asked them to just think about what I just said. Both promised that they would think about it. Linda spoke first. "Is that creepy guy still in the picture?" Lisa replied that he was no longer there. "Okay, I'll think about it," and suddenly hung up. Larry then said, "Goodbye, Dad," and hung up as well. The abrupt end to the conversation was upsetting, but Lisa liked what I said and said so. I then asked Lisa if she could come over the following Saturday morning to discuss any progress with the children and think about what to do next. She agreed. May 6th. Yesterday, I went to see Mark. I was still angry that he got the kids involved. He admitted part of the blame and then suggested that we try together to improve the relationship between me and the children. We called the kids and Mark talked to them while I listened. He told them to open their hearts to me. Said I was a lousy wife, but a perfect mother. Linda asked if Jeremy was still in the picture, and I said no. Then she hung up. Mark said we need to give them time. They are still in pain. He added that he was still in pain too. Today, I have more hope. We met the following Saturday morning to talk about children. I prepared breakfast for her. I told her that the kids weren't ready to move on yet, but they no longer expressed anger or resentment in our conversations. My goal was for them to stay with their mom for the summer holidays, but that didn't happen, so I paid a deposit in advance for a furnished apartment for us. Lisa was unhappy. Reconciliation should be voluntary, not forced, I told her. May 20th. Yesterday, Mark told me that he had rented a furnished apartment and that the children would live there with him for the summer holidays. I was disappointed, but not too surprised. There is one more week left until the end of the school year. I'm exhausted. My psychologist, Dr. Pat, has been making me talk about Jeremy all week. It was painful, but she said that I needed to face the fact that I cheated and thereby erased Mark from my life. As long as he was invisible, I didn't have to deal with the betrayal and pain I caused him. She made me realize that I had fallen in love with a shallow, rude, manipulative man, and in doing so I had ruined a 25-year marriage. I continued to try to improve the children's relationship with their mother. Their answer was, "She destroyed our family," to which I replied, "No one suffers from this more than her." But they agreed to at least meet with their mother. I organized dinner. They promised that the night would just be a social event to see if they could even be in the same room with her. Then I went to talk to Lisa. This was the first time I had driven to the house since Jeremy and I ran into each other on Sunday. We talked on the porch. I invited her to my brother's house for dinner just to try to be social again. I told her that my brother would be there, but I didn't tell her that the children would come too, because I wasn't sure that they would actually come, even after their promises. The children came, and they even came earlier. Lisa arrived on time. The children were out of sight in the bedroom when she entered. Lisa thanked me for the invitation and hugged my brother, thanking him for taking care of me. As soon as she pulled away from her brother, I asked her, "What about those two behind you?" She turned around, seeing her children. She smiled widely, laughed, then began to cry and began to sob. After a while, Linda said, "Mom, Mommy, don't cry," and rushed to hug her mother. The children were shocked to see their mother disappear in front of them. This took them by surprise. For them to stay angry, Lisa had to remain stubborn, but she wasn't. My son joined his sister in saying more subduedly, "Mom, please don't cry." Even my brother was on the verge of tears. I was the only one in the house who didn't cry. 10 minutes later, Lisa finally broke the hug from her son and daughter, walked up to me, hugged me tightly, and said, "I don't deserve you." I finally stopped it by saying, "Okay, that's enough. Who wants to eat?" When dinner was on the table and everyone sat down, Lisa asked my brother if she could say a prayer. He nodded, we all held hands. Lisa sat down next to me. After a moment, Lisa said, "When we gather for family dinner, please, Lord, forgive me for my sins against my family. Thank you for my son and daughter, whom I love with all my heart. And thank you for my husband, who put aside his righteous anger for me to save our family. He is a good man to whom I caused a lot of harm." After a long moment, Lisa let go of my hand and tried to pretend that everything was fine and asked her son to give the meat to his uncle. After dinner, Lisa and the children went for a walk. My brother and I were sitting drinking coffee. "Well, that was one hell of a touching scene," my brother said. "Yes, I think this will last for a while," I replied. I was wrong. Half an hour later, Lisa and the children returned, and Lisa told me, "The children told me that it was you who brought us all together again. You may not believe me, but I really love you. I was so lost, so wrong. I had something wonderful, and I threw it away." With these words, she hugged me and kissed me. I kissed her back and hugged her tightly. When we finally broke apart, I whispered in her ear, "I never, ever stopped loving you. I tried, I really tried." After an hour of talking, it was time to go. I asked my son to take my mother home because she was a little distracted from everything she had experienced. I followed them to then take my son home. As we left, Lisa hugged me again and quietly asked, "Please stay with me tonight." "No, I said. I really love you, but I'm still suffering too much. She sighed and kissed me softly on the lips, saying, maybe someday soon. June 23rd. I'm still shaking from last night. Mark surprised me at his brother's dinner by inviting my kids. After everything I've done, he still protects me. He still puts me first in everything he does. I thought he would be angry with me forever, but that's not the case. He's still angry, but his compassion seems stronger. My kids and I have a lot of work ahead of us, but they still love me, and that means everything. I don't know if Mark and I have a future after what I did, but I know that he still loves me too. The children returned to Lisa for the rest of the summer. I often called her just to talk for a while. The children also let me know how Mom was doing. They said she was better, but it was clear that she was still sad. So, did I want to try to reconcile with her after everything she had done to me? It will never be the same as before, but is there anything that can be saved? One day Linda asked me to have lunch with her. We grabbed lunch at a local diner, and after we finished, she asked, Dad, why don't you come back to us? Larry and I want you to come back, and more importantly, Mom does too. Oh, honey, that's a tough question. I love your mother very much, but I'm a coward. She hurt me badly. My male pride is destroyed. Maybe male pride is an evolutionary relic from the time when people lived in caves, but that doesn't make it less real. I saw how your mother cried for you children and how she cried for her lover, but she never cried for me. I know that she wants me to come back, but does she want it because she has found the love we had and lost, or because she needs security and a hug every now and then? If it's the latter, then the next young, attractive, charming man will attract her again. I don't have the strength to bear it. Linda listened, nodded, and said, I understand, but sometimes you just have to believe. And maybe someday I'll have that faith, or courage, or strength, or whatever it is I need to take a chance again. Don't lose hope. 2 months later, the children left for college. For Lisa, things got a little better when the kids were around. But now she was alone again and terrified that she would have to again find herself among her colleagues at school, who all knew about her shameful behavior. But she felt she had to return to teaching. On the Saturday morning after the school year started, I came to her door. I would like to discuss our future, I said. She invited me in, and we sat down at the kitchen table. She made coffee, and we talked for a while about nothing. Listen, honey, I began. I don't know if you even want us to have a future, but if you want to at least discuss this possibility, I'd like to talk about it. I mean a hard, honest conversation. Our old marriage is dead, but maybe we can start again. It may not be possible, it's too much pain, but I'm willing to discuss it. I took a sip of coffee. Lisa said, I really want this. She then asked, just curious, but since we're on the subject, why haven't you filed for divorce yet? Oh, the divorce petition and proposed agreement have been sitting on my desk for 3 or 4 months, awaiting my signature. She nodded. Oh, I see. I won't sign it until there's a chance to save something. Then I asked, how about next Saturday we spend all day discussing this? Saturday came quickly. Lisa prepared a good breakfast. After breakfast and leisurely coffee, we talked as we had before. Then, reluctantly, we began the discussion. She asked if I would ever forgive her. My answer was that I don't know, the pain is still real and deep. But maybe we can move on. I need to understand what happened and why. It will be painful for me and for you. This is what I need, and I need you to understand the pain you've caused. She nodded. A few days before your weekend with Jeremy in the mountains, I read a couple years of your journal. I saved it to my computer, printed it out, and kept copies in the office. That's why I ended up in the house when you and Jeremy were doing it. I continued, it seems like you started losing interest in us a few months before Jeremy showed up. Well, that explains how you knew so much. I thought so. But about when I lost interest, no, I don't think so. Why do you say that? Lisa interrupted. I talked about the references to me in her diary, how they had diminished in the months before Jeremy showed up. I also told her that I felt a distance between us around the same time, and I was quite aware that our sex life was in trouble. Lisa simply shrugged and said she didn't notice it. I talked about Jeremy's appearance in her diary, which happened a month after Linda left for university and we were left alone. When she wrote about Jeremy, it was frantic admiration. The mentions about me in the diary were negative. The words annoying, annoying were common words used to describe me in short mentions in the diary. More often than not, I wasn't mentioned at all. In the months leading up to December, it felt like I was simply disappearing. She reread parts of her diary with me. She apologized for the negative things she said about me. She attributed her admiration for Jeremy at that moment to depression from the fact that the children left home. She repeated what her psychologist had said, that she was depressed and was looking for something new to cheer her up. Jeremy was new and shiny. I agreed that it made sense, but why was cheating on your husband for taboo sex the new shiny thing? She didn't know. I asked again, this time more insistently, what was it about me that made you hurt me so much? She said that blaming me for the bad marriage was a way for her to not feel guilty for ruining our marriage. By November, I told her, I knew our marriage was in serious trouble. We have created a new normal, quiet coexistence. Almost no talking, followed by quiet evenings in front of the TV. But by December, even that had changed. She started coming home later, an hour or two later. Instead of sitting quietly together in front of the TV in the evenings, she spent every evening grading papers and preparing lessons in the office, leaving me alone in front of the TV. Everything has changed. I pointed out that her diary said that Jeremy had openly suggested the idea for a novel to her a few weeks before Thanksgiving. She said that it was impossible because she was married, but she was clearly intrigued and the diary kept flirting between them. Then there was a passionate kiss at a high school party, followed by a hasty trip to the Stardust Motel. After that, Stardust became an almost daily routine, a day's delight, as she described it in her diary. Then Christmas. The children were at home, and there was warmth between the children and mother, and between the children and me, but between mother and me there was again cold aloofness. Christmas morning marked a dramatic change in our family tradition. Previously, Lisa and I chose gifts together, wrapped them together, and wrote, "From Mom and Dad," on small cards. Not this year. They didn't ask me. Before I had time to buy gifts, I put the checks in 2 plain envelopes, wrote, "From Mom and Dad," and gave them to the children. Lisa wrote only, "From Mom," on the dozen gifts she wrapped under the tree. Then you opened my gift. It was an expensive set of necklace and earrings. You looked at it, said, "Ah, nice," without even looking at me. Then you put it away without even showing it to anyone. Linda took it, opened it, squealed, and said, "Oh, Daddy, they're beautiful." The look on your face showed that you were annoyed by the noise she was making. Linda looked at you and said, "Mom, what's wrong with you? Isn't that beautiful?" To which you replied, "Yes, nice," smiling at Linda, but not at me. The gift you gave me was a tie. Later, Linda and Larry took turns coming up to me and asking what was going on between us. I told them I don't know. Mom was so cold to me. I was worried that our marriage was dying. It was a $5,000 necklace. Mom loves jewelry. Then, the week after Christmas, you disappeared for hours at a time, giving no clue as to where you were. Now I know you were with Jeremy. When the kids left for university, the cold silence returned. Lisa sighed and finally spoke. By then, my loyalty was only to Jeremy. I had no intention of cheating on Jeremy, physically or emotionally. I was preparing for my future with him. You ripped my heart out. I know. Being brutally honest, I didn't care anymore. I was too caught up in this wild adventure with Jeremy. The center of my life had changed, and you were no longer a part of it. So you had a plan for Christmas, I asked. No, for Christmas I only had passion, no plans. I had dreams or illusions, but not a plan. I dreamed of Christmas in our house with Jeremy and the children. Where was I? You weren't in that dream, she replied, looking down. Was I invisible? I asked. You were invisible, she replied. I'm so sorry. We moved on. I noted how important it was to both of them that this sexual act symbolized Jeremy's belonging to the exclusion of me. Why was your shared passion not enough? Why did it have to become an element of your sex to erase me? It was Jeremy's way of making me completely his, symbolically eradicating you. He said we were banishing your influence on me. The idea that I belonged only to Jeremy was exciting. I played along with his disrespect for you to excite Jeremy and close the chapter of my life with you. Then you wrote about how our children would love Jeremy, how he would become their friend, their role model, and their new father, I said. I was devastated reading this. Not only did you want me gone, but you wanted to remove me from our children's lives. Why? Did you hate me so much that you needed to completely erase me from the family? Lisa replied, my fantasy was of a perfect world where there were no disturbing images. You were the embodiment of my betrayal. My need to erase you from existence was simple. I betrayed you, and therefore you had to disappear. I needed to justify my behavior. And why did you give this man what was denied me in 25 years of marriage, in just a few weeks? I asked. Maybe because your love for me was unconditional. No matter what I did, you loved me. You were always there. With Jeremy, there were conditions attached to his love. It was, do this for me so that you can prove your love. I traded sexual acts for his continued attention. I really liked those things. The initial reluctance was what I traded for his love. But then I admit that next time I did it not only for him, but also for myself. So pure, unconditional love is less intense than conditional love? I asked. Yeah, I guess. Which brings us to that night when you came home after 10 p.m., 4 hours later than usual, and you didn't even bother to clean yourself up after your threesome sex marathon. Why? It was just another stop on this stupid adventure. I didn't mean to be so obvious, but in the end, I almost didn't care. I'm so sorry. This brought us to the day when I caught Lisa and her lover in the act. I told her that I didn't plan this, but I took advantage of the opportunity. It was painful for me. I reminded her of how that confrontation went while they were both naked on our bed. I enjoyed watching your lover tremble while I unleashed my anger, I said. You really scared Jeremy. He thought you were a weakling, and when you showed up at the door, he was scared. Then, when you focused on him, he was really scared. I was surprised and scared too. I've never seen you like that. Well, I never allowed myself to get angry in your presence, and the only way Jeremy could think of me as a weakling was based on how you described me to him. She was silent for a moment and then said, I think you're right. Jeremy's name to you was what I needed to hear. Because of my betrayal of you, I needed you to not be good enough. By the way, you really scared Jeremy. The weekend at the cabin wasn't romantic because of you. He grumbled at me all the time. We had sex, but without passion, Lisa said. I continued. That evening, Linda called. It was an innocent call. She didn't know anything. But while talking to her, I lost control and started crying. I told her that you left me for your lover. The children rushed home to be with me that weekend. I proceeded to tell Lisa how completely broken I was that weekend. I added how, when the kids left on Sunday morning, Larry told me that this place didn't feel like home anymore. He was in tears when he said this. And that brings us to Sunday afternoon. My plan for leaving carefully went out the window with Jeremy's arrival. I could see that my presence came as a surprise to him. But still, just when I thought I had gone through all the pain possible, you joined him in the front yard, standing next to him and against me. And then when he left and you collapsed in tears because of him, it was another gut punch for me. I was still in love with Jeremy, although now I saw his rotten sides, his lies about his wife, his indifference to her pregnancy, his inability to deal with you when you stood up to him, and his anger at me because you hurt his pride. I saw you in a new light, your strength, which I had not noticed before, your sympathy, although I did not deserve it. But I burned all the bridges with you, and until he left, Jeremy remained the man I chose. But in that favor that I did not deserve, you came to me, picked me up, and gently led me into the house, away from the prying eyes of our neighbors. I added, After I saw you collapse and cry for Jeremy after everything he said, I realized that you still loved him. If he would have let you get in his car that day, your fairy tale with a happy ending would be with him, and I would just be thrown away like unnecessary trash. The worst thing was that I still loved you. No matter how hard I tried, I could not stop loving you. After a pause, I asked the question again. So why did chasing the shiny thing have to be the end of our marriage? Because the kids left, because before Jeremy came along, my life was over. But why did the shiny thing have to be the lover? I don't know. Without children, I thought I had nothing left to live for. Wasn't I important enough? There was no answer. She didn't want to say anything. I was overcome with a cold. I realized that this won't work. Our marriage is dead, and if we try to resurrect it, how long will it last? I am now dealing with a woman who has lost her true love, and who is now simply settled for me as someone to keep her warm at night until the next Lancelot comes along. Even though I gave her the opportunity, she never tried to figure out why it was so easy for her to dump me for another man. But she already gave me the answer. I was a weakling. Not soft, not meek, not one who respected his wife, not one who always tried to please his wife, but a weakling. It was my flaw that was why it was so easy for her to throw me away. Look, I said, the chances of us working out aren't great. I don't want to try to reconcile and then find out a year later that you're back with someone who just attracted you to him. Newness, because I'm bored. You loved him, even after he rejected you. I was nothing to you. You thought that our children would love him as their new father. It scares me that you're just agreeing now. At me. She raised her head. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She spoke in a trembling voice. It's true that I loved Jeremy. Even after he left me, I still loved him. I wanted him to be the new father for our children. I wanted you to disappear. But I don't settle for you. I love you. My love for Jeremy was an illusion. My love for you is real. Please forgive me. She started crying. Do you know how much pain I felt when I realized that the love of my life, my soulmate, and my best friend no longer wanted anything to do with me, that she wanted to erase me? She raised her head, her eyes full of tears trying to focus, and she looked at me. She saw the cold, hard expression on my face. The same expression she saw the day I found her in bed with Jeremy. Full of panic, she said, I love you more than ever, Mark. Don't leave me. I can't go on without you. Yeah, I felt that way too for a long time. But you'll get through it somehow. Besides, Jeremy will still take you back. You won't have as much money as his wife got from her parents, but you'll be able to provide him with that lifestyle he craves, at least for a few years. No, no, oh God, no, she screamed. I got up and was about to leave. Are you leaving me? I stopped, facing the door and with my back to it. I thought, she deserves it, but I can't do it. Yes, leaving is a reasonable thing to do, but love is not about rationality, and I still love her. I sighed, turned, looked at her and said, no, not yet. We have a lot to think about. I still love you, but I told you this might not work. She stood up, looked at me and said, look, damn it, I did what you asked. I told you everything. I was brutally honest. I gave you what you wanted. Look, your love is unconditional, and I screwed up by underestimating her. But whether you like me, whether you want to be with me, even whether you respect me is all conditional. I know that if I want you in my life, and I really want it if I want to be your best friend again, and I really want it. If I want you to have any respect for me, then I will have to earn it every day. If you come back to me, I will do it. I will deserve it. Your friendship and respect every day, and maybe someday your trust. I will deserve every moment you spend with me with all your actions. I walked up to her, pulled her towards me, and hugged her tightly. She hugged me back. We stood there for several minutes. Then I whispered in her ear, I love you. I don't give up. I can never give up on you. It's very hard for me. I'm afraid that you will hurt me again. But until then, my love for you will be my weakness, my addiction. She looked into my eyes. There were still tears in her eyes, but a smile began to appear on her face. She replied, "I will never hurt you again." I smiled back and said, "Yes, I'm tired of walking slowly. I love you, honey." And then I suddenly saw a woman who had once been my wife. I saw the woman I fell in love with, the woman I married, the woman who bore me children. I saw the woman I loved with all my heart. The woman who betrayed me, who caused me so much pain and suffering, faded into the background. She was still there, but I didn't care. I kissed her with more passion and intensity than I had in years. We went upstairs. I slowly and gently removed her clothes. I exposed her beautiful body and laid her on the bed. She smiled through her tears. I leaned over her and kissed her gently, then slowly kissed her beautiful breasts. We had sex. After that, I rolled onto my side and lay next to her, holding her to me as only a lover can do. We silently looked into each other's eyes, both blinking away tears from the newfound love that we seemed to have lost forever. Finally, I tenderly said, "I love you, Lisa Murphy. No matter what happens in the past or in the future, I will always love you." She pressed her head against my shoulder. We made love 2 more times that night and fell asleep in each other's arms. The next morning, I carefully extricate myself from the arms of my new bride. I quietly went downstairs, made myself some coffee, and tried to comprehend everything that had happened. It seems that I threw aside reason and bitterness and surrendered under the pressure of intense love for this woman. Yes, I knew that she had caused me the worst pain I had ever experienced. Yes, I had no guarantee that she would not repeat the horrors of last year. I had no rational reason to believe that she wouldn't do it. I did not act based on a balanced analysis of the facts. I acted solely on the basis of love in my heart, and even though it was unreliable, I didn't care. In the end, I decided that we were worth the risk. This woman was the only one I wanted in my life, and whether it was happy together for the rest of their lives or not, I decided to follow my heart. Epilogue. Lisa and I sought professional help, which helped us. We sold our house. Larry was right, it was no longer a house, just a building. We held a symbolic second wedding with the children and Sarah. The following summer, I took a long vacation, and we went to Europe. We visited every museum, cathedral, and castle we could handle. We made love on a nude beach at sunset on the Mediterranean Sea in front of an enthusiastic audience and engaged in other adventures that will remain only between us. I've been keeping an eye on Jeremy. One night, he took an overdose. He was lucky; they were able to resuscitate him. The woman he was in the room with did not survive. She could have been Lisa if I had given up and left her. He gave the dealer away. He was then charged with manslaughter in the death of the woman who was with him. He received 10 years in prison. But one day, after he bragged about what he could get married women to do for him, a prisoner whose wife was cheating on him overheard it. Jeremy died in prison after slipping in the shower and hitting his head a dozen times on the hard floor. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.